Well, DK, first of all, I know that you were born in New Jersey. How did you wind up in California?
Well, I drove my dad's car there when I was 7 years old.
7.
No, I ain't kidding. It was a 1940 Buick, and he worked for the government. He was in the Ways and Means Committee of the government, and he was in Philadelphia doing something with a Philadelphia Naval Base, and decided that I was born at that time, and however that happened. And then they left. I didn't live there. I was just born there, and then they wanted to go to California, and I wanted to drive race cars. I always did. And I sat in the middle seat of the bench seat that's in the 40 Buick, and
no seat belts.
Pardon me?
No seat belts, I'm sure.
I don't think they even invented them. We're lucky we had a car. But my left foot on the gas, my left arm on the steering wheel, and I drove the whole distance. Not in the city or when we were parking or anything, but I drove, I don't know how many thousand miles out to California, and there we were. So I was raised there. I raised in Southern California, San Bernardino, and that's it. That's how I got to California.
How did you first get interested in racing?
My mom and dad are very religious people, great parents, all the way, and they didn't like us kids. There were 3 of us, and this is in, I'm going to say 1953 or 4 or something like that, when we were just moved to California, and they didn't like us to go to the movies. They didn't like us actually to go anywhere. We just had to go to church, and that was it. And then they both worked, and they had all 3 of us boys. We were like two years apart. I was a center guy in the 3 boys, and we got to in San Bernardino. They both worked, and so they sent us to California Kitty College. Okay, that's KKK, but it wasn't a Ku Klux Klan. And it was California Kitty College.
Yeah.
And after school, we would go there until they finished work, and then we would go. Anyway, the guy that ran California Kitty College was Bob Walden, who nobody knows, and they liked to go to the races. Well, my mom and dad, they were very regimented or of people of habit, let's say, and Saturday night was my mom's lucky night, if you know what I mean. Okay. So they would put Lawrence Welk on TV. Put Lawrence Welk, the champagne music of Lawrence Welk.
Yeah.
And then they would dance in the living room, and then pretty soon they would go off somewhere, and they'd just disappear. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't have any idea, but my dad told me it was her lucky night. So, so anyway, we wanted to go do something, something that wasn't the movies or something that we could do and still lined up with our church program. And Bob Walden liked to go to the midget races, the local midget races. And I went with him a couple of times, 10 times, I don't know, but we would always go Saturday night and then come back to his place for a little while and have a soda and whatever it was and a little party, and then go on. My dad would come down, pick me up, and go. But during that time, these races were amazing. I fell in love with racing. I didn't have my dad. Nobody in my family ever did it or anything else. I just wanted to do it, and they had this. I wanted race after race, and nobody famous was there at that little track. But on one Saturday night, the promoter had invited a guy in from Texas to drive one of the midgets. And I didn't know too much about it, but I looked in, and there was a midget racer owner named Harry Stockman. Okay, I don't know why I remember that. He had I don't know about his car, but every race he started, he finished last, always. I think he was just a steering wheel holder,
Yeah.
But he finished last, and this boy come in from Texas, and he came in there and won. He got fast time, won the trophy dash, won the heat race, and won the main event. All 3 of them. The car that never been anything but last. And I said, man, this guy's something else, And we went to, after the races, I went with Bob Walden back to the Kitty College, and so did the drivers came. And they had beers and stuff in a party there. And I walked up to this guy, and his name was AJ Foyt, was the guy's name. Okay. And from that moment on, I used to be Don or Donald, but from that moment on, I said, I'm going to be DK now.
Because he's AJ, you're going to be.
Because that man can come in there and whip all these people. The only thing I can do right now, I'm only 13 or something, and that was 1957. And I said, the only thing I can do right now is I'm just going to start using my initials, and I'm going to figure out how to race as time goes on. And that was the day that I said, I'm going to be a race car driver, and that's it. I have nothing else that I want to do. It took from there, at my age, had to finish high school, get in the Army, and get out of the Army. I had a honorable discharge in, I think, 62 or something like that. And then when I got rid of that, got married for a little bit, and then said, all right, the heck with this, I'm going racing, and that's it, 1968.
From what I've been able to gather, you and a buddy were on the way to Vegas in 19...
Oh, no, this is prior to racing now. This is like back in... I was racing locally.
Okay.
I was racing kind of like Busch Series or whatever like that, but It was not Busch. It was California Racing Association, and driving cars every Saturday night. And we had a group of people that worked with us, and all volunteers and all for fun and all that. But one day, I decided to. Me and Mike decided to go out and seek our fortune. We had a couple of $100 between us, and we're going to go to Las Vegas. And we just drove up there from San Bernardino.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, you stopped in a little town called Baker,
yeah.
California.
Baker, California. It's 93 miles from Las Vegas and 132 from San Bernardino. I remember that right now. And that's where we just stopped for a minute to get gas and a burger or something like that. And I saw the junkyard that had a 57 Chevy body, or it was just an old junk car, And I wanted to go in there and see if I could buy that, because we were just doing Saturday night stuff, Stopped in, asked the guy if I could. His name was Karma Duke, okay. And I asked him. I said, I want to buy that car right there. Can I buy it from you? He said no. He said, I'll give it to you.
Okay, great.
And I said, fucking A, man. What kind of deal is this,
Yeah.
And he said, well, there is a catch. You got to take these other 800 cars with it. And I said, you mean you're going to give me all of them? And he said, here's what's happened is the constable and has seen this to be a mess, and always people come into this town, all they see is junkyard with all these cars in it. We want to clean up the area. And he said, you got 90 days to get all these cars out of here.
90 days.
That's it.
To get 800 cars out.
800 cars.
And you just stopped for gas.
All we did was get a burger and gas. But anyway, that guy, I looked at Mike, and I said, well, we don't need to go to Vegas. We can make some money right here, And that's what we did. We said, we're going to do it. And I told Karma right then, call him Duke, not Karma. But I said, Duke, you're on, buddy. How much time do I have? He says, 90 days. And so we took off from there, and me and Mike turned right back around and went to San Bernardino. And we didn't have any money, but we needed a truck, and we needed welding equipment, cutting torches and all that, and we needed something to crush the cars with, and in order to get rid of them. We knew the basic thing about handling junk cars, but we didn't have anything to do it with. So I put all that together by one of the race car drivers in San Bernardino where I was racing with Sam Rose, and his father owned a junkyard. So they sent me like an A-frame truck, or let me have that first 90 days. I told him I'd pay him when I was done. Then we took a $100 bill or $100 and got all ones. And this big grab of money like that, and had 20 on top of it, and have it in my pocket. So when I go into they had some credit cards. They had Master Charge and Bank Americard. That's all they had in that day. And people didn't really deal with cards like it. But I'd go into the welding store, and I told them I wanted to have this, that, and the other is for the A1 Salvage Company. And, you send us a bill. And I had the money out in my hand when I was doing that. I put it in my other pocket or something, so they could see that we were... So they did it.
The A1 Salvage Company?
It didn't even exist.
That didn't exist.
But the guys, the garage up there where the junkyard was the A1 garage in Baker, California. So I just used that name in case they wanted to make a phone call. They could find us up there somewhere. So we just kind of bullshit our way through everything, and got all the stuff and went up the road with it. And Baker, California was kind of a place where they had a lot of transients. Guys would lose their money in Las Vegas, make their way back that far, and maybe they had a head gasket problem or something like that, and they would stay there, and so there's a lot of guys hanging around doing nothing, and we hired them to do the work for us. And away we went, and we just cut all the pieces out of it, saved all the aluminum over here and the copper over here, and wiring was all copper, so you throw that in a pile, and we burned all that stuff, when we get a big pile of it, and just made all this stuff work. And I had the truck that Mike and I went up there in, like a pickup truck, and we did all the little stuff with that, and then the big truck that we leased, without any money. I don't remember how we got through that, but we got it and started doing it. And we were just crushing them with we had this A-frame thing, and we had a water tank that was laying out there with it. Cut the water tank in half, filled it full of sand, welded the top back on it, and then picked it up and put a hook in it, and picked it up with that and let her go and hit the cars, and then pull it back up again, move it over a little bit, drop the car. And we'd take 13 cars at a time that would fit on this truck, the flat ones, flat cars, and take them over to where you sold the metal and everything. We had already stripped out when we got it. In fact, during that time, we had all these cars that were full of upholstery, and we stripped them all out, but they were full of upholstery, and they had so we had to burn them all, and they wouldn't allow us to burn them for whatever, California, no burning, whatever it is, and so we said that we had an old fire engine that was at the junkyard there, and we took that and convinced the local people that we were going to have a fire department up there, that we'd have 2 or 3 guys, anytime there's a fire, we'll be there, right? But I said, we got to have practice, and so we need to burn these cars here. That's how we got away with doing it, and the you don't need to go into a lot of detail here, but you would go this way, that way, and take this out of the car, and the rear ends would go over here, the carburetors would go over there, and whatever it is, and then you'd have the hull of the car, but it has all the upholstery and stuff in it, and then whatever else is in there, and we'd put it under or put it in the pile and burn them all at one time. We'd burn 35, 40 cars at a time, big fire, and then smash them after that and put them on the truck and take them away. But we made. In the 90 days, and we got it done. We kept the '57 Chevy. We didn't.
You didn't accidentally smash it.
No, we didn't. We didn't crush it. Anyway, at the end of the day, we made about $35,000, and that was big in that time. I mean,
this was 1968. This was 1968?
No, this was going to, yes, 1968. It's going to be 67, 68, somewhere in there. Right, yeah. Can't remember exactly what that is. I know the phone number of the place, but I can't remember what year it was. But that happens. Anyway, that's what I had in my pocket when we got done. And me and Mike looked at each other and said, we came in here with $200, and in 90 days, we got, it's all cash too, we got $36,000. I think it was $37,000 that we had. And we're in Fat City then. I mean, we're ready to go now. We're ready to do something. And so I talked to Duke, and he said he was getting ready to retire. And I said, what will you take for your junkyard? There's nothing in it now. but he said he'd take $30,000 for it. And so I bought it at that time, $30,000, and had $7,000 left over. I'm still in Fat City, we're still good. There was nothing there but a building and a garage, like a repair garage. But he'd take all his tools out and everything when he left. But that's what we had, and I started making a lot of people would have a head gasket problem in those days, and it was all hot in the middle of the desert, and they're hauling ass to go to Las Vegas, and then they're trying to figure out how to get home from there, and they blow a head gasket, and they need repair. So I put this concoction together of aluminum shavings sodium silicate, which is egg preserver that they put to make the eggs hard on the outside so they don't break when you sell them. And I put this concoction together that if we could take a car with a blown head gasket and drain all the water out of it, start the car up and just get everything hot, all right? Run some water back in it and get it where it's just boiling hot, and then drain that out. Put the sodium silicate concoction in the radiator, and then get it as hot as you can get it, and shut it off and drain it out. And if you let it sit overnight, you got a brand new motor in the next morning. I mean, you got the head gasket is repaired, and you can get down the road into L.A. or wherever you're going from there. And we made it work, And the thing we did with that is when you come in, it costs $100 for me to do that. Then I take you to the hotel. You stay overnight while we fix while we let the thing set. The restaurant, the hotel, everything downtown. I got a nick off of all that. I got a few dollars off of every time we brought somebody down there, and then made enough money to start building my money back up again, And I got it back up where I had maybe $15,000 cash, and then started going racing. That's when I decided to go racing right then. It was 1969, I think, by then, and I went and bought a 1970 Ford Torino 426 4-speed, all the stuff I needed to start with. Bought it, financed it with Ford Motor Credit, $144 a month. Took the car over to my house where I lived, and me and Mike stripped it all out, brand new stuff. People going shaking their heads, looking at us like, "What are you doing? This is a brand new car." But kept the motor, transmission, rear end, and a couple of things, but took everything else out of it. Sold the radio, whatever we could out of it to get ready to race that car.
So 1969, you're going racing again. You've built up your business in Baker.
Yeah.
You get a race car and you're going to race it. At what point did you start thinking about giving Winston Cup a try?
Right then. I
then.
already been racing locally.
Right.
And we won a couple of trophies here and there and did what I did at the Orange Show Speedway. And then we went to Ascot Park and ran in the dirt sometimes. I had that set going on at all times, except when I was in the Army. I had that thing going there. And this is what I said at that time when I went to Baker. I'm good now. I got a place of business that I'm going to sell. And I have, $15,000 in my pocket. So me and Mike loaded it up on that car that we just stripped out. Loaded that up on a flat open trailer, and a 56 Ford pickup truck. Hooked it up. It was old too. I mean,
right.
This is 68. That's a 56, and it was old. The windshield wipers didn't work. And we took off to go to Holman-Moody in North Carolina and get the front clip put on and the rear clip, and kind of make a race car out of it, roll cage and all that. But you didn't do it like you do today. I mean, you take a car like that and
right.
and make it into a race car. You didn't just make a race car and turn it into a stock car, So we did all that and went there and came back. And I remember that when we got into a big storm in Oklahoma City on the way back, and that's the first time I needed a windshield wipers. And so we took a bungee cord and a piece of string or like a piece of rope, tied them together, where they'd work together,
yeah.
and put the bungee cord on the one by the driver, and then a rope like this here, and Mike would go and pull like this, and make the windshield wipers go back and forth. It was my whole deal with racing is a story of we didn't belong there. We did not belong, but I knew we were going to go back and beat Richard Petty for sure. He'd be easy. I knew that when I did all this. I said, all we got to do is get some good equipment and go.
Easy.
I drive the car. Don't worry about that. That's a piece of cake.
Now, you obviously had your business interests in California, and that eventually expanded, I'm sure. How difficult was it for you to balance your racing with your other business interests?
I really didn't. I gave the garage, the A1 garage. It was running smooth with all these things we were doing, and we had the fire department, which we made, and people were doing that. But I had somebody do all of it. I didn't.
Okay.
I left town, and had people doing it all, and it was for sale. You know, I didn't build it into anything more than it was. We got nearly $50,000 out of it when I sold it. You know, so I made a little profit there. That was after I got the car back from Holman-Moody. I had to finish it up, and we had to have a real race engine, and we had to have, you know, real parts to make the car go. So we spent that money doing that. And when I left town to go racing, we had there was a place in San Bernardino called, can't remember, but the guy that owned it was Bob Brown, and he said, "Would you take that bus right there and make a camper out of it and pull your race car with that and head back east?" He just, you know, he always did everything for me locally, and he wanted to do that for me on my excursion to the big time. And I didn't know shit. No, I mean it. I mean,
yeah.
all we knew is what we saw, and or you know, what we saw at Riverside, and I wanted to go there first, and go from there. You know, and we put this all together and got the bus and the pickup truck, and the bus was, we made beds in it out of wood.
Yeah.
And with mattresses, you know.
Yeah.
And it had no facilities in it at all. It just was a place to sleep. And then we had a grill to cook out on and make our way. But it was really a low-budget operation. And we tried to get the race car ready for Riverside, but never made it. We got it done where I thought we could go from California and get to Atlanta for the race at Atlanta in 1970. And we were trying to get to that race. And that was our goal. But we never made that either. a lot of stuff happened in between.
The money that you won racing, you didn't just throw it all back into the car to try to make it to the next race. You actually, from what I understand, invested some and spent some. What made you different in that respect than so many of the other independent drivers who basically poured every cent that they had back into the race team? What made you want to do that?
Well, I didn't spend a lot of it. I didn't keep a lot of it. If I would make $2,000 at the race, I might take $200 and put it back over here and buy stuff for the rest of it, because the stuff I could buy isn't. I mean, I can't buy the stuff that the factory guys had. They wouldn't even sell it to you. You couldn't borrow it. You know, it was just the factory wouldn't allow you to have those parts. So I bought parts that I could afford, and try to put some money back so that one day, whenever I get enough, I can do what I want to do, you know. But I just wanted to do that. And then the investments, I've never invested in the stock market or never invested in somebody else's program. I invest in something myself. For example, I built I needed a new shop somewhere down the line, probably in the 80s or 70s, late 70s or something. I needed a new shop, so I bought a piece of property and then subdivided it and built 6 shops. I kept one and sold the other 5 and came out of there with a few dollars in my hand and a shop. And just like that, I would do things that were entrepreneurial, let's say, or just try to make $1 make 2 and move it around a little bit instead of just putting it in a car. And I don't think it ever cost me on the racetrack. I mean, nobody knows what it was like to be an independent, and I wanted to win the race, but I know I can't. I know I can maybe finish behind those other 12 guys that were factory guys. You had Holman-Moody, you had Junior Johnson, you had Wood Brothers, Nord Kruskoff, and each one had a car, sometimes 2, and those 12 guys, you can't outrun them. You just absolutely cannot outrun them without their kind of budget. You know, you can't, and you have to have the support of the factory. I mean, I wanted to get a set of cylinder heads. When Ford made the Hemi head engine, and I don't know when it was, you could put them on these hemispherical heads and an intake manifold that went with it. You could put that on a 427 Ford motor and have yourself immediately another 100 horsepower, you know. And when you go down a straightaway, you can easily see the guy that has it and the guy don't, you know. So I never could get that, and I went to Holman-Moody and talked to John Holman, Went in there and stood on his desk, because I'm here to get a set of those cylinders.
You stood on his desk?
No, I'm saying that meaning I was up on him, talking to him this right here. I wasn't going in there to not come out with cylinder heads. I did. I came out with no cylinder heads. He wouldn't sell them to me. He wouldn't. He just couldn't. He said, Ford won't let me do this, and so that's the way it is. And so I said, well, I guess what we'll do here. I said, I'll pay you whatever you need. He wouldn't do it. So I left and went back to the shop and talked to my buddy Pancho, who worked for me. And I said, we're going to go down to Holman-Moody tomorrow. And so we did. And we went down there, and I went back in there to John, and I said, is there any possible way, in the used set, just some way I can get these cylinder heads? And he said, I talked to you last week. I told you what the deal was. He said, even if you came in here with all the money in town, I can't sell them to you. Well, at that time, I had left Pancho in the restroom, and I went in there at 4:35 in the night and talked to him for a while. And they closed up, and I left. I left Pancho in the restroom. He met me out back about 8:30 in the night with a set of cylinder heads and an intake manifold. All right? John Holman, if he was alive today, he'd say, no, you didn't. He said, we were missing some parts. That's how I got and I went to Pocono with this motor put together and qualified 8th, and I never led the race because I had the tire issue during the race, but I mean I went by Donnie Allison, and he's looking at me like, where'd you come from, dude? You belong back here somewhere. But it was fun. It was fun to do, and we had a good time with that.
What was your goal? Were you wanting to get hooked up with a Holman-Moody and drive for them, or a Petty Enterprises or Wood Brothers, or were you wanting to build your own program and get some factory support?
I didn't think it was ever possible to do that. I just realized after I got back here, this is 10 years into my career right now we're talking about.
Right.
But, on the 5th day I was trying to race cars and realized I was way off everywhere. I didn't have any knowledge of what was going on. I had to learn all that. And so I said, during this first period of time, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure this thing out. And by 1975, I got it figured out. And when I say that, I still can't win the race. But in the 4 years that I ran the full schedule, 76, 7, 8, and 9, I finished in the top 15 in points each time. So I would have made the playoffs if they had them, but they didn't have them at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what you could only expect to do. But when it comes to Buddy Arrington, who may rest in peace, he just died a week or two ago, Jimmy Means, J.D. McDuffie, all that whole group of people like that, we were all friends. But we raced our asses off. I mean, we didn't in the race. We had what we had, and I could beat those guys. They could beat me. But when I went to the races, I didn't. People think I went there to stroke around and do nothing. No, we were doing all we could at the back. When I say that, it's just it was like a different division that we were racing, and I won that division many times. Never the race, but I finished 4th up in Dover in 1981, I think it was. That's my best finish that I ever had as a driver.
At one point, somewhere I believe in the mid-1970s, some of the independent drivers actually got together and basically went to war with NASCAR over the structure of the purses and plan money and so forth. How involved in all that were you?
I led that.
Okay.
I led that, and Richard joined me in doing that to get a name in the thing. And we met here in Charlotte with, 25, 30 people. And we weren't against NASCAR. It was just that we needed more purse money, and we all survived on purse money. I had a couple little sponsors. They would usually give us sandwiches and beer at the local bar and put the name on the car.
Yeah. So how did all that work out? How did all that plan out with NASCAR?
It lasted about 2 weeks. Billy Jr. He spoke with an iron fist. When you go in the back room with him, you know what's going to happen when you come out. You know, you already know. I mean, he's in charge. He was in charge, and he said the one thing that NASCAR does not do is deal with the race car drivers as a group. We just don't do that. And he meant it. You know, and all of a sudden, it was so difficult for me to get anything done with NASCAR because of that. You could apologize or you could just not do it anymore, but at the end of the day, he remembered everything.
Well, didn't plan money eventually come into
I don't think
exist?
That brought it in.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
I don't believe that I mean, what we did in that meeting that we had here is I generated interest with everybody that we need to do something here and we need to have it. And they had to, this was after the PDA, the Professional Drivers Association that was at Talladega in '69.
Right.
That was up and gone. And then this was the next thing that was a group effort trying to, and pretty soon they listened to the guys and what we were, and I showed them that this can't happen. That there's not enough purse money. If you finish 10th every week, it's not enough to buy any tires. You can't really do anything with it, and I think they recognized it at that time. But I never got anything out of it except bad publicity or whatever you want to call it. But they didn't like me after that. It took me a long time to get back to. That was going to be in '72, maybe or '3 or something like that. It was.
Okay.
I just got there and I thought I could do everything. I knew I could do everything. It didn't matter. I can run NASCAR. I can do anything. It didn't matter. I knew I could. I never could, but.
You mentioned the other independent drivers. Of those guys, of those teams, was there one or two that maybe you were closer to than the others that you kind of?
Well, yeah. I mean, Elmo was my best friend, Elmo Langley, at that time. He was older than me, but he was showing me everything. When we first started, he'd show me the ropes. Here's what you do. You know, here's what you don't do. And then he was my best friend to begin with. And you know, after that, we always were. All of us worked together. We all knew that we couldn't win, but we knew that when the green flag drops, we're going to kick each other's butt however we could. You know, sometimes you had to lay back a little bit, but.
Tell me a really good story about James Harvey Hilton.
Well, you know, I don't know if I got a good one about him. He was a good friend.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a day that he was getting something at Pocono Raceway. He was getting a dinner for some reason. I don't remember what it was, but I had a plane at that time, and I flew him up there just to be there, and I was at the party with him. I don't have a real good story about James. I mean, we shared everything we had, and we're very good friends. You'll see some pictures of he and I and Richard Childress when he was driving that we all kind of hung together at that time. But
that's actually the next person that I was going to ask about was Richard Childress, because you knew Richard Childress before Dale Earnhardt and so on and so forth.
I knew Richard Childress in Islip, Long Island, New York, when Grand National East, and he and I went there, and it was not our first race, but the first race that we were going to run in the circuit for a while. You know, we got there, and I met him there, and we went downtown, chased horse down in New York City back then.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first.
If you're out there, Richard, I love you, man, but I got to tell the truth.
And Richard, if you're out there listening, don't shoot the messenger. From what I understand, James and Richard in particular loved to play practical jokes on each other.
Yeah, always.
Tell me a good practical joke story about those two.
Let's see. Not Richard, because Richard, we never really ran together, but we knew each other all this time. And right now, today, if I walk in the garage, he's going to go out of his way to come over and shake my hand and say hello. Really great guy. I don't have any stories to tell on him. and
Sure you don't.
Well, I know that I can tell you a story on another guy, but I don't have a good one on James. We ran together a lot, and going up the road, we always were together. You know, and we had a good time together. And I was very upset when that happened when he died, you know, and him and his boy. I don't have one.
Okay.
I don't have one.
Do you have any about practical jokes between the two?
Only between anybody or
just between anybody. That's fine.
Mark Martin came into my shop with a Apache stove Pontiac, and I don't know what year it was, sometime there, but he didn't have a place to be, you know. And Mark had driven for me once in Talladega. His mother had put something together with a local Chevrolet dealer, and we had but Mark came into there, and he had this Pontiac, and he was fast, you know, and he was from up north. And I went to see all the stuff, you know. He drilled holes in everything. He you know, for weight. Every gusset in the roll bar had a hole drilled in it, and he had all this Swiss cheese looking car, you know, and it weighed less. And I said, "What's the difference? You still got to weigh 3,600 pounds or whatever it was, but you know, it all was down here instead of up here." But anyway, and we had drilled holes in the toilet paper and put it in the restroom where he was going. Every morning he'd go in the restroom. And then Buddy Parrott, who was next door working with K&K Insurance Car or something like that, he was next door, and he put a like a bomb or like a firecracker bomb in right next to the toilet, only with a string going outside. So Mark goes in there, and we figured just about the right time, and blew that firecracker off. And he come out of there, pulling up his britches, and we know he had to use something. I don't know how to use that. We had nearly the whole roll with holes drilled in it. He got a kick out of that. That was another time. Mark's a good guy. He drove for me a couple of times in his career. There's a lot of guys that did the practical joke stuff, and it was fun. Buddy Parrott was one of them. He's still around. I hadn't heard from him in a while. He and I went to Sturgis together in 2001. Not together, but we went at the same time. Robert Yates was there, and a bunch of us were motorcycle guys up there.
All right.
Give me a minute to think about it, and I'll come up with some practical joke kind of. I mean, you heard the Riverside program I told Moody about.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
All right. And those kind of things, they weren't practical jokes, but the experiences were amazing. It's so different that you know, when we go down the road, my crew chief at the time, and I'm going to say this is 75 maybe or something like that, was Dean Anderson was his name, and he was a crew chief, but he has no crew. We didn't have a crew.
Yeah.
Me and him and Johnny, Jack, and Jose Cuervo, Jack Daniels, and Johnny Walker. We all went down the road together, along with a handful of pocket rockets.
Oh dear!
To keep us awake.
Yeah.
And just two of us in the truck, and we'd go, you know, out to California and everywhere else. And I ran with Elmo Langley at the time, where he was. We'd drive together. He had a truck and a flat trailer behind it. I had the same thing, and we traveled all the way out west. But when we left to go to out west in the summer stretch out there, we were going to Atlanta first, directly over to Texas World Speedway, and from there to Riverside, and from Riverside to Michigan, and from Michigan to Pocono, and then back down. We had that route that we were going to take. We never came home. You just kept going, and you had one motor in the truck and one motor in the car, and that's it. You know, you got to figure out how to make it on that, and we did. You know,
Wow.
we'd make that loop and live right there in the truck.